Champ and Chump brought to you by Sarah Chevrolet Sterling Heights. We'll have our Champ and Chump nominations today at 10:35. Look, the previous caller is right about what San Francisco's doing. It is amazing. Mm-hmm. It is amazing. When you have a football team as ravaged by injuries as they are, and they've still managed to have the kind of season they did and do what they've accomplished, I give them a ton of credit, and they deserve it. When you are evaluating the job that was done with any team and they overcome stuff like that, I give them A pluses. Like I gave the 15-2 Detroit Lions A pluses.
They overcame it.
They overcame it, and it's hard to do because it can take down a season. In fact, arguably it took down San Francisco last year. And Detroit didn't overcome it this year. And you know, so his point of championing the 49ers is valid, and I agree with it. But both things can be true. You can overcome it, but it can also impact you to the point where, I'll just say this. I don't think drastic action is necessary with the Detroit Lions. I think there is action that's called for. But when it comes to evaluating the kind of season they had, their shortcomings, I think their biggest shortcoming was not staying healthy personally. But hey, Jay disagrees, and that's fine. But teams like Detroit last year and San Francisco this year have done a great job to overcome an inordinate amount of injuries.
Yeah, I think there are two things that stand out to me when you look at the failures of this season. And you get angry about it the more you think about it, because we're watching the playoffs and the Lions aren't in the playoffs.
Yep.
And then you see an example like San Francisco, who's dealt with just as many injuries, and they just came away with a monster playoff win on the road at Philadelphia. It's very impressive what they did. But the two things that really derailed things was, you look at the offensive line with the Lions, the retirement of Frank Ragnow, coupled with all the injuries they suffered to the backup players in training camp and in the first week of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what that does, okay? So now you're having to go with a backup center because Ragnow's not going to play football this year. And then you've got guys like Giovanni Manu, Miles Frazier, Kobe Sorsdahl, Jamarco Jones on the offensive line that were going to be capable backups that weren't available to you as a backup. So if anybody got hurt during the course of the season, like Christian Mahogany breaking their leg, here comes somebody else that has to play that isn't necessarily the backup. Or this is why when the last game of the season, when Penei Sewell goes out, you've got Devin Cochran, your starting right tackle, or Taylor Decker is out and you got Dan Skipper, your starting left tackle. It was a massive problem for this team. The other thing that I'll go back and when you take a step back and look at the season and what went wrong, they lost 2 games to the Vikings. And the Vikings aren't a good football team. No. They have talent, but it's not a good football team. They lost to Max Brosmer and J.J. McCarthy. And McCarthy beat them, and he wasn't a world beater in that game. They had like 150 yards passing in that game. But he made a couple of plays, and the Lions didn't make their plays. And the Lions got beat at home, and then they go out on Christmas Day and lose to Max Brosmer and the Vikings. And then the Lions go out the next week without Penei Sewell and beat the playoff-bound and advancing to the second round Chicago Bears for the second time this year. You beat the Bears twice, but you lost to the Vikings twice. That's infuriating when you look back at it. And I'm sure the guys on the team were like, I can't believe that happened. It happened. That happened. And that sucks. And when you start looking back at what went wrong and you recognize that's a big reason why, and then you start going through every game and every play, if they'd only made this catch or if he had blocked this or whatever, it's going to drive you nuts. That's the NFL. It's what happens. And it's a season lost by the Lions. They didn't make the playoffs, and now we're left to complain about it and bitch about it until everything's done, and then you prepare for the offseason and free agency and the draft.
248-539-9797. Bill is next. Hi, Bill.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
What's up?
Hi, guys. How you doing?
What's up?
First of all, I just want to say prayers to Pat and his family. We're thinking about you, Pat. We love you. Hang in there.
Yep, absolutely.
And, I want to thank you guys for being the bastion of sanity on this radio station. And, there's all kinds of craziness going on out there. And, it's first of all, the Lions held the Eagles to 16 points. So I mean, it's just and Robert Saleh is a tremendous defensive coordinator. I'm just gonna say that. So that has to be factored into what we saw yesterday. And just really quick, Champ and Chump. I'm going to champ the Red Wings. That was a great win on Saturday night. And Chump the Packers. I like chumping the Packers anyway, anytime I get a chance to. But this is the second time in a row they had they completely collapsed against the Bears. And we had to watch Ben Johnson doing Pee Wee Herman gymnastics on the field. And it's just going to fuel I'm going to be, like you say, Doug, show respect, but it's just going to fuel the crowd that says, "Oh, look, it was all Ben Johnson. It had nothing to do with them." It's just going to.
Well, Ben Johnson deserves a lot of credit. I mean, obviously, but he's at the end of the day, it's easy to find him to be very irritating now in Chicago, and that's okay. They're a rival, and I don't have any issue. We're not going to stop any Ben Johnson slander here, fair or unfair. He's the head coach of Chicago Bears. And they right now are the kings of the North, and we got to take them out moving forward. But, I think the Lions are positioned in a good spot. I would say that the bulk of the Detroit Lions fandom that I've had my entire life, previous versions of me are jealous of the current for where the Lions are right now. I almost every Lions regime and roster and coaching situation, almost everyone is not as good as this one as it stands right now.
I think it's obvious.
And that's why I'm in a good place. I mean, they have to have a big offseason. Let's be clear about that. They have to have
they have to bounce back.
248-539-9797. Time for our Champ and Chump nominations. My champ, I'm going to go with John Gibson, the shutout at Montreal, 4-0. In the new year, his goals against 1.51, his save percentage 950.
Wow. He's been great. My champ is going to be Curt Cignetti, head coach of Indiana. He's got his team looking like the 2019 LSU Tigers. They're clicking on all cylinders. It's amazing. Now they're going to face Miami in the national championship game. The classic great offense versus great defense. I like their chances. Plus, he went viral after the game with his comment about, wanting to just have a beer.
Yeah.
Curt Cignetti, when he's in I want a beer mode, I'm dying to see what that guy's like. Because he scowls the entire game, and now he's I just want a beer. How happy is he when he's got a beer?
A few beers in, Curt Cignetti might be entertaining. My chump of the weekend is Brandon McManus, the kicker for the Green Bay Packers. He missed 2 field goals. Look, windy day, missing the 55-yarder at halftime, certainly more tolerable than the 40-yarder that he missed with 6.5 minutes to go. Or wait, no, the 40-yarder he missed with 3 minutes to go, and the extra point he missed with 6.5 minutes to go. All very costly for the Packers, and he is my chump of the weekend.
Yeah, my chump is Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Packers. They blew that 21-3 lead, a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter. Completely changed their style of play in the second half by playing out of shotgun for the vast majority of snaps, and their offense suffered. And now they're not sure if he's going to coach or not, or they're going to give him an extension because they're kind of caught in the middle.
He's getting an extension.
Go ahead, give it to him.
Yeah, that was the reporting from Schefter this morning.
If that keeps John Harbaugh away from what might be the best job opening right now in football, if it comes open, would be the Packers with all the talent they have. Yeah, please keep Matt LaFleur there.
Well, it feels like everybody wants John Harbaugh right now. And that's one job that Mike McDaniel won't get wherever Harbaugh lands. McDaniel's got 4 interviews for head coaching positions, and he's got 1 interview for an offensive coordinator position. And that 1 interview is here in Detroit. The Lions are positioning themselves to be the soft landing spot if McDaniel gets denied a head coaching position. So who knows if it's going to work. It's hard to imagine that any of the jobs that are currently open that McDaniel is interviewing for, which are Tennessee, Atlanta, Baltimore, and is it Cleveland, Ken?
Cleveland for
okay,
McDaniel,
so those 4. Those are the 4. If he doesn't get a head coaching job there, what are the odds he accepts the offensive coordinator job there? Not good, right? You wouldn't imagine like they hire somebody else, but say, and then that guy says, I want you to be my OC. Seems like he wouldn't take that. I feel like the Lions are positioned in a nice place to get Mike McDaniel.
I think they're in a great position. If McDaniel doesn't get a head coaching offer, I think they've got him. I think the Lions are the number one OC position in football that's open for sure. And I think he's expressed how much he likes and admires what the Lions have done. Keep in mind that Miami was in. We saw them practice here. So there's they were here in training camp with the joint practices. So there's some familiarity there, and I'm sure the coaches talked and all that. So I think it could be a nice marriage if he doesn't get a head coaching gig.
Feedback coming in. My champ is Ben Johnson. Amazing play calling, like the winning touchdown play. My chump is Ben Johnson with his childish end-of-game handshake with LaFleur. That's from an unnamed texter. Another one, champ of the weekend, the Detroit Red Wings for their shutout against Montreal. Chump of the weekend, A.J. Brown for the drop ball and poor attitude postgame. He had a couple of big drops in that game.
He had a couple of monster drops.
Champ is Purdy. Chump is LaFleur. That's from Andy in a Corolla.
Oh.
Unnamed texter, my champ is collectively the fourth quarter of all those weekend playoff games minus the Patriot game. And my chump is building contractors everywhere and say they're going to get one thing. Say they're going to do one thing and then don't. Look, if you've ever got any building or construction, I always have grace with them because I don't think I've come across one that's ever said, we'll have it done at the end of June, and it's done at the end of June. All of them, there's obviously challenges to that job that make it very difficult to make timelines. 248-539-9797.
I just hope the finished product looks great.
Yep. It's Karsch and Anderson. More of your phone calls and feedback. I got one takeaway for this weekend. I don't think it's going to be very popular, but I'll get to it at 10:48.
Interesting. Plus, a familiar face that is leaving one school has decided where he's going to end up.
Okay. That coming up as well here on Karsch and Anderson on 97.1.